not on Zoom who are calling in, how are we supposed to communicate our votes if we're muted during the meeting?
So for
You can still raise your hand.
yes, you can raise your hand using the phone function, and then your state delegation chair will look for hands. And then
How do you do that on a phone?
there's a Zoom.
I'm looking it up, Mr. Chair.
All right, Ms. Harlos is looking it up. All right, I believe that we have now all of the call-in attendees have been
Star 9.
Star
Star
9
9
is
is raised
hand
hand.
raised, Star Child. So try Star 9.
Right now, you want me to push it in?
Yep, please. And Star 9 again. We'll put it back down.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Your hand is up right now, and if you hit Star
Okay.
9 again, it will put it back down.
Okay.
I believe. Try it.
I don't see a lower, but we can do that.
No, the hand doesn't go down. Let's see. Karen Ann, is it a different thing to put the hand down?
No, it should be the same, but we can always lower it.
All right. So Star Child, it should be Star 9 would drop it again, but if it
Yeah,
doesn't,
I did that.
okay. So then I can just, oh, and now it's gone.
That was
But I
me.
don't
I
know.
just did it.
Oh, we fixed it. All right.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Uh,
second. I'm sorry, delegate from Arkansas, Joe Swafford. It doesn't seem as if once you become a panelist that you're able to pose a point of privilege within the Q&A. I could whenever I was an attendee, but I cannot as a panelist.
You can't add a question. You can
No,
only
sir.
answer them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then you'll need to raise your hand. And if I see hands raised from panelists
We may
I
have
also
to
want
do
to bring
this
it
as
to
a
your
meeting.
attention easier.
no, I'm just, if I can think of something real quick we can do, I'll do it. And if I can't, we'll add that to the list of notes for this to figure out how to do it later.
Panelists can also speak.
If you're hosting, I don't know if it's different, but trying to look at my delegations raising their hands, it's pretty difficult to go back to or go down to the full attendees list and then search and then find to see if one of my delegates is actually raising their hand. I don't know if there's an easier way to do that or if I'm taking the hard way, but that may be a note to make as well.
Okay. The other thing is, if you are a panelist, you can unmute yourself and say point of order.
Point of order.
See, there we go. Ba-doom. Do you have a point of order, Ms. Robeson?
Well, I don't really. I have my
Okay.
hand up. There was just
Okay.
one other thing is that there's still people that just have names and they have no states.
Okay. We will work on that. I think whoever's changing names can start chatting with those people and we can get that cleaned up. Who was the changing names? Is it Becca? Are you changing?
Yeah, Nick, that's me. And if I can for just a second, it seems that the attendees are not able to message me or chat with me directly.
They can only chat the panel.
And there are
Oh.
so many chats coming through. I'll see my name for a quick second and then it's gone and I can't find that message
Okay.
again.
I think that we can disable the chat amongst the group. Hang on one second. So that then they can only chat you. I'll work on that.
Okay.
Thank
Mr. Chairman,
Is this a point of order?
it's a report from your employee, sir.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Gideon.
No problem. All communication that was not posed in the form of a privileged motion has been removed. I didn't think it proper for me to remove anything that was posed and obviously wasn't. That's in your purview, sir.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bilyeu, you have a point of order? Is this still a valid point of order or is it, we're past that? You're muted, sorry.
I have no idea which one you're talking about.
Point of order, how do we get in line to be recognized while vote is happening?
Yes, someone did ask that question earlier and I don't think, I don't recall the answer. I'm not sure if it was given or if we were still guessing.
Okay, I'm going to run through all of yours actually. Hand up and then hands went down. I think we've solved that with the polling. Is that right?
Yes.
Ms. Bilyeu? I mean, or it's better. Because if we do polling, it doesn't change your hand being up or down.
Okay.
I'm just looking to make sure, see if there were any others that you had. Okay, thank you. Mr. McMahon. Evan McMahon. And the interrupting motion, we're done with that. I'm going to say we're done with that.
Yes, we are done with that.
Point of privilege, adding abstain as a poll option. I think that that is appropriate. You can add abstain as a poll option because you need to click something to get that off of your screen, and that allows somebody to not make a vote if they really don't care. It actually gives us more information than we normally have. So Mr. Fishman, if you can update it, if you can update to have an abstain, I think that would let you get rid of the poll. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Ms.
there are many panelists also asking for a NOTA option on all polls. It's blowing up the chat, just so you know.
Yeah, no, I've seen it, but I'm ignoring it on purpose because it's actually abstaining. You can't none of the above on yes and no. I mean, you could, but I prefer NOTA for named things. All right, so that's done. Point of privilege, only chat addressee choices are all panelists and attendees. Mr. Heersman, whose name's still Mr. Heersman from Colorado. Is your name updated yet? All right, I'm not sure. I'm gonna. John Heersman. He is on the phone. There we go. Mr. Heersman.
I can't tell.
Okay, are you a delegate or an alternate?
I'm a delegate.
From Colorado?
Yes.
Okay, we will get your name updated so you're easier to see.
Thank you.
And I don't know about the chat options.
Okay.
Nope. Point of information, does that mean only delegates who have paid accounts? No, delegates who, being a panelist is unrelated to your type of Zoom account. It's related to how we have you in this thing. Point of information about getting credentialed, those are done. Ending debate is 2/3. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Moving to end debate on the previous question has to be done in order. You can't jump the line to answer that point of information. There was a question about the length of hand raising, but the polling gets rid of that. Credentialing, we're done with that. Mr. Bake, did you, no, that's point of information, sorry. An old objection, that's going to go away. That's a question about what we would do if someone can't get in on time but can get in by voice. I think we would see a voice person that we didn't know who they were, and we would stop business to get them credentialed or put them into the room where the credentials committee could handle them. Oh, and I shouldn't have dismissed it. I should have answered it live. I apologize. Point of, it's old one, parliamentary inquiry, point of order. Can Daniel Kraus be updated to be New Jersey? Can phone-in listener Daniel Kraus be updated or allowed to speak? Okay, thank you. New Jersey delegate, is that right, Mr. Kraus?
Yes, New Jersey delegate Daniel Kraus. Thank you for changing the name. I was having difficulty with the settings.
No problem.
Bill, you,
Mr. Bowman's point of privilege has already been resolved. Dismiss. Mr. Enser calls for orders of the day. We are on, or I'll answer live. We are on orders of the day. Mr. Clark. Robert Clark. You have a point of, is this a request for information, Robert Clark? And is it privileged? Mr. Clark, I cannot hear you, but you look like you can speak if you're not muted.
Apologies, please dismiss.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, points of information are not privileged, and points of information should not go in the Q&A. This is killing me, Smalls.
and they will be deleted.
They will be. Point of privilege, Mr. McVeigh has a point of personal privilege. People can't be able to sign in, and Mr. McVeigh, it appears your name has not been changed. So Mr. McVeigh, is that going to be, the name change can be resolved, and I think the link should be there for people.
I don't have the ability to change my own name on the phone, I don't think.
Right, no, you don't. Delaware still?
Yep, Delaware
And
delegate.
Delaware delegate?
Got
Yes,
it.
sir.
Thank
I'll
you.
do it.
Mr. Chair, point of inquiry.
Yes, point of inquiry from the panel.
Just because it's Aaron Adams, Oklahoma, just because we're talking about names and names changes, I'm wondering what would happen since we're using these letter combinations if we have a duplicate.
A duplicate what?
Duplicate initials, duplicate names like John Smith, Betty Adams, things that are similar.
Within the same delegation?
Potentially, especially people who are listing with simply first initials. Are we?
Well, I think Credentials is going to have them listed by the name Credentials Committee has.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I have
Thank you for the
information for you on that.
Ms. Harlos?
In 2018, I've gone through the entire delegate list for Elpedia, and there was only one instance in which a person had the exact same name, and they were in different states.
So, okay, thank you for that. I have a point of order from Georgia Delegate Jean Bell. Is that a hand? Jean Bell? Georgia Delegate. I think you can unmute yourself if...
Okay, I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so how many polls did we do?
We did a few, but it is up to the producer, which is Fishman right now, whether or not to display the poll results. We can take polls and not display the results. And that's why I think you didn't see all the results.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, you point out that people on the telephone would not be able to see the results.
And that's why we will announce the results with the yays and the nays with the numbers.
Can you still hear me?
I can.
I am on a phone, and I'm unlikely to have anything but the phone.
Okay. So that's why when we do the poll results, we're going to give the yays and the nays and the numbers when anything passes. Ms. Bilyeu, I do see your hand. I'm just getting through the last of the written ones, okay? If Mr. Flores has a request for information, Mr. Flores, Alex Flores from Arizona.
I am not able to give him permission to speak because he's using an older version of Zoom and he needs to update his Zoom to be able to speak. Otherwise, I need to promote him to panelist, which I
All right, then Mr. Flores will need to log out we'll need to update his software and come back in and then raise the question again. Mr. Bowman, that's not a point. Mr. Bowman raises a point of order that someone should be in a different room. We don't have rooms tonight, and so that's not going to happen. Ms. Bilyeu.
So I've been waiting to speak for I don't know, going on 10 minutes now, maybe. I don't know, because it's impossible for panelists to type things with a timestamp in the Q&A to get points of order.
Right. I was just clearing them out.
Right. When I'm trying to point out an issue. So my question, what I guess would have really just been a point of information. I needed you to repeat something you said a very long time ago now.
Okay. Go ahead.
But I was waiting in line with my hand up the way I was instructed to do. And then you recognized another panelist with a point of information. So as a panelist, then does that mean I can go ahead and just unmute myself and get in there when I need to?
And I said that, but I may have said it in passing, but the panelists can unmute themselves. And so they can call, I mean, if we do it a lot, it will obviously be a problem. But if there is an interrupting motion, you guys can unmute yourselves if you're the delegation chairs that are panelists or the other people that are panelists and say point of order, and then we'll see.
So my question is, I needed you to repeat a response you gave earlier when someone asked what happens when someone comes in late and needs to be credentialed. And I just want to clarify what I heard. I heard you say that person would go to a room where credentials takes care of them. And when they're ready, they can come back and join business, and that we would actually stop business for that. So is the expectation that we will stop business for that every single time someone new joins?
No, my expectation is that what we would do is we would have periodic. You don't get into the credentialed room until credentials makes you credentialed, gives you whatever code that puts you into the room or gets the co-host to put you into the room. That's when you get into the credentialed room. So it's a flowing process. We're not going to stop business for it. We're going to have people helping to make sure that that other task is handled by people who are dedicated to that task. This format, what I'm realizing, it requires a lot more volunteers that are actually acting during business, right? To keep track of actual questions, to answer people's questions. I mean, we need to have people that any attendee can chat to say, I have a problem, right? And maybe we'll have a dedicated point of privilege person and point of order person and parliamentary inquiry person. And then some of these questions and concerns can be resolved outside of asking the presiding officer to deal with a technical issue or to deal with somebody saying, what do I have to do to get recognized if I'm in this scenario or this situation? And I don't know, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but my concern with that is people who then need to go seek out that person, trying to fiddle around with this list to find them and send them a message, whether they can or not, because some people on here are saying that if they are, that they can only send message to the panelists. Right. So how are they supposed to be keeping track of all this business in real time while they're going to get their other question answered and then basically probably miss everything that happened?
The same way it happens at a live convention, where if you go take somebody into the hall to ask them, how is it that I'm supposed to do this? Or to talk about who are we going to vote for next, you miss the business that's in the main session.
That's if you have to leave the room, but that's not always the case. People can ask each other questions sitting next to each other.
Okay, I have a point of personal privilege. Mr. Olson from California. I requests a point of privilege. Mr. Olson, can you explain what the privilege is?
Nick, this is Mimi. I'm texting him. He doesn't have his hand raised. He's somehow shown as 3 different people and he didn't raise his hand. And if you look down the list, he's 3 times.
Okay. Well, no, he raised a point of privilege in the questions.
I'm trolling.
Mr. Olson, would you like to explain what your point of personal privilege is? Or Dr. Olson, I can't hear you. Dr. Olson?
He's saying it's not him.
Okay, so that participant that says California Delegate K. Olson,
Yeah, I'm texting with him right now. That is not him. So somebody has changed something somewhere to be him. That's not him.
okay. Well, then that person, one of the co-hosts, Mr. Oakes, can chat with that person, or did they just get booted?
I can boot them.
Okay. Well,
I mean,
Point of information.
yes, Ms. Bilyeu.
I have a participant asking how non-panelists are supposed to get recognition for a request for information. When their hands are raised, they get knocked down just because hands just keep getting knocked down. And apparently they're only able to send messages to other panelists.
But Ms. Bilyeu?
Yes.
So people are still putting in the Q&A things that are not privileged motions.
That's not what this is. That's not.
I know that's not what this is about, but that needs to be resolved. We said earlier, we're going to stop putting questions in Q&A. So Mr. Oakes, keep an eye on it, please, because they keep popping up. And
okay, so then how does a person get recognized if they're supposed to raise their hands, but then their hands get wiped out for whatever reason?
Hands aren't getting wiped out.
I agree that I don't think we wiped out hands since the last time when we did a hand vote.
I haven't gone to ask people. I have not gone to recognize any attendees because people keep putting in things that they claim are privileged motions in the Q&A. And as I said before, I'm going to check for the privileged motions. And so if people keep spamming privileged motions, we'll take as long as that takes before I'm going to ask anybody who's not on a privileged motion. Mr. Zimmerman has a point of order. Mr. Zimmerman? Scott Zimmerman also does not indicate that he is a delegate or an alternate.
Is that something I can ask? Was that something I should have done when I entered the room?
No, but are you a delegate or alternate?
I am a delegate from the state of Nebraska. Yes, sir.
Okay. Your name can then be changed by the name changer. And your point of order is that there wasn't a second on the motion to adjourn. So how would the vote not be valid because of the lack of the second?
It's a point of order. There was never a second on the motion, so it wasn't a valid motion. Should have never been a vote in the first place.
It shouldn't have been voted, but it was defeated. And so that point of order seems to have been eliminated, basically.
Okay. So would there need to be a new motion?
Well, Mr. Knapp is trying to make a new motion. So okay. I'm about to take that one because it's also privileged.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Knapp from Florida has a motion to adjourn. Mr. Knapp can be recognized. And Mr. Lawhorn has the second. Thank you. I'm going to dismiss both of those. Mr. Knapp.
Yes, I believe
I don't think it's debatable, Mr. Knapp.
Okay, then I don't know why you unmuted me.
I actually don't know either. And if it is debatable, Mr. Brown, the parliamentarian, you can unmute yourself.
It is not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I just wanted to double check there was a question before.
And I did not hear the question. This is Mr. Brown.
Yeah, is the motion to adjourn at this point debatable if it would dissolve the assembly?
If it would dissolve the assembly, yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
if it's an ordinary motion to adjourn, like in an ordinary meeting, it's not debatable. But if it ends the existence of the assembly, such as the final day of a convention, it's an ordinary main motion.
Okay, well, I will interpret this. Well, I will allow Mr. Knapp to speak to his motion if he could be unmuted again. And I know that there's an objection, Mr. Perry. Please don't shout your objections in the Q&A, even though shouting your objections in the room is not available to you in this form. Mr. Knapp, go ahead.
Yes, I believe in the last hour and 45 minutes, we have collected enough information concerning Zoom to reveal that it is not the tool we need for an online convention of the type we want to run, and that it's therefore time to move on. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going, since we're going to allow debate, we're going to move to those people who have their hands raised. Mr. Ecker. Wisconsin delegate, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was not originally going to debate this, but it kind of speaks to the same kind of thing that I wanted to comment on before. In Wisconsin, when we did our convention, we used Zoom, and we did find that there were numerous things about Zoom that were not up to par for our purposes. One of the ones that was discussed several times during the course of this was ensuring that, for instance, alternates can't vote. We had a similar thing. Members were allowed to vote.
Mr.
Spectators were not. So
is this germane to the motion to adjourn?
It is.
Okay.
Oh, to adjourn?
Yes.
No,
that's what's currently being debated.
Okay. Well, then I'm against adjourning, because I think there's still more to be said about how we use Zoom in this that could resolve the problem.
Okay. Mr. Merced. You can unmute yourself, Alex.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, your hand looks like it's up.
Okay, my apologies.
Mr. Perry.
Yes, so I've actually been seeking to be recognized for quite some time because I wanted to make another motion, which is part of why I'm opposed to adjourning. And also just because parts of this particular meeting aren't going the way certain delegates wish that it was, does not mean that Zoom necessarily is not a good platform. It just means that it's not currently being run in the way that it should be for this type of meeting. And that's not a disparaging comment or remark against anyone that is running this thing, because we're all learning here, and there's definitely going to be a learning curve. So I oppose adjournment.
Okay. Ms. Malensky from New Mexico on the panel. You should be able to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing me. I am opposed to adjournment. I think that there are many questions left unanswered, and even though we've covered a lot of ground tonight, I think that this is very similar to a sweet and sour candy. We've got to get through the sour before we can get to the sweet. And we have to go through the learning curve in order to be able to understand what the pitfalls are, as well as what the prevailing points can be to using Zoom versus the other possible options that we have, including in person. I would much rather do, my personal opinion is I would much rather do something of this kind of a technical capability than risk the lives of my grandparents and my parents in the possibility of contracting something, even if it wasn't that. I just think that this is a viable source of voting. We have to get through the technical capabilities of it, though.
Thank you. Next, I have Mr. Latham from Utah. Go ahead.
Hello again. So sorry, there's an echo.
That's okay. Try.
I lost my train of thought. No, here it is. I'm seeing all panelists in the chat room, I am not seeing all panelists and attendees. So I think when I was recognized by phone, I was not sent back to the regular chat room. And I think that could be a problem for other people who were recognized by phone.
That is not germane to the motion to adjourn. Mr. Sheets and Ms. Malinsky, you can, oh, you did put your hand out. Thank you. Mr. Sheets from Pennsylvania. And you have control of your own mic.
Thank you. We have a couple people who said they don't have microphones, but would like to say that they're learning a lot from this process and would like to keep doing it. And that's all. Myself included.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson and from California, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I think adjournment would be in the best interest of the assembly right now, and I call the question.
Mr. Nelson has moved to end debate.
Mr. Chair, point of inquiry.
Point of inquiry, Ms. Adams.
For those, if we're going to end debate and move to a vote, for those members joining us by phone, how will they vote if we use the poll system?
They won't, and well, they can raise their hands, sorry. And then
so
we
if
will
they're
look
on their phone, they should raise their hand. And could you repeat those instructions to do it?
Well, actually, here's what I'm going to recommend, because we were in the midst of debate and I want to maintain the hands in order that they were already in. So what we will do is we will have a vote on the moving to close debate with the poll system. And everyone that can vote with the poll system will vote with the poll system. And I will look at those yays and nays. And if it's not close, we won't do a divided vote.
So are we not going to allow our members joining us by phone to vote on this question?
We normally would. We will try and figure out a way to do that in the other one, but I don't want to lose all the hands. I mean, we can let them raise their hand on the phone, and then Mr. Oakes can try and look and see how many phone participants have raised hands.
Could we maybe write down the individuals who have their hands raised right now? Just write that down and the order, and then
it goes down to Mr. Bowman from Michigan. He's the last attendee that has his hand raised. So if I see any hands past him that are phone related, I'm going to consider them part of the poll. Okay. All right. So all in favor of ending debate. Mr. Fishman, can you do the poll? Yes, no, and abstain. Move to close debate. Yes, no, and abstain. Please vote. And I'm looking at the phone participants. None of them have raised their hand to close debate.
Mr. Chair, could we remind them how to do that?
If they raise their hand, we can ask them. Mr. Latham.
Star 9 though, is that what it is? What's
Yeah,
the
star 9 is the, sorry, star 9 is the hand raising for phone users. And I am taking this as these are hands raised to close debate for Mr. Latham and Mr. Wright.
And Mr. Starchild.
And Starchild. He prefers no honorific. And then I will take the not raised hands as either abstentions or not closing debate for the other two phone users that I see in my list. All right. Can you please give the poll results, Mr. Fishman?
We have 155 yes to close debate, 38 no, and 18 abstains.
All right, debate will be closed. We will move to a motion, to a vote on the motion. All those in favor of adjourning this session? The motion, Ms. Harlos, I'm going to recognize you because I see your hand. Is there something procedural? And I can't hear you because you're muted.
Not seeking to be recognized. I thought you were asking for votes.
No, not yet. Mr. I have a privileged question from Mr. Olson, CADK Olson, asking, why do I keep getting removed? Is that person in and out?
This was the person with multiple accounts. We were trying to put them down to just one account.
Okay.
Am I being heard?
Yes, you are being heard. Go ahead, Mr. Olson. You had a point of privilege, I believe.
Yes, I was. Where can I vote for Bill Weld?
Oh, who is speaking? All right, that was not helpful. All right, Mr. Anderson asks a point of information. Mr. Anderson, I believe this is related to the what the effect will be of this vote. Is that right, Mr. Anderson? Phil Anderson?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. So we're going to move to a vote on whether or not to adjourn. Adjourning this does not mean that we don't try this again at some other time, that we don't, try it in a different format next time and see how it goes and continue to work to get better at these things. We have this tool all the time. I mean, this is a party asset that is available. And so if smaller groups want to work with it to see how it goes outside of this larger format, we can do that in between so we can test some things. I will inform the body at this point that I deliberately requested at least more than one person to try to disrupt this meeting, because that was the primary concern, was what are the weaknesses in how we do this and how will we deal with disruption and what other better ways can we deal with disruption? Because maintaining order in a virtual room is a little bit different than maintaining it in a physical room.
And
So
Mr. Chair obviously did not ask me.
Well, I didn't, but so we will now move to a vote on the motion to adjourn. We will do that by polling. And if we are adjourned, we'll just be done for the night, which was kind of my plan in 2 hours anyway. So the motion to adjourn is up.
Can I know we're voting, but I just want to tell you that person that's Kay Olson, that was not him.
No, I didn't think it was.
But he's like really pissed right now that somebody was able to get in his hand.
And we're trying to figure out, those are part, what I would ask is anyone that has valuable information from this about what did work and what didn't work and what things could be better and what things could be worse and what weaknesses they see. Mr. Fishman is very open to knowing that, so that the next time we run one of these smoke tests, we can do that. So Mr. Fishman, if you can do the answer on the poll with the motion to adjourn.
And I didn't get to vote, so I'm doing for yes.
Mr. Chair.
It's pretty overwhelming. Please read the yeas and nays.
143 in favor of adjourning, 43 opposed, 14 abstentions.
And so we will be adjourned. Were there people that wanted to be recognized? We're now adjourned.
I did.
But I'm not turning it off.
I just wanted to
Yes,
say,
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, wait. Hold up.
Go Garth.
Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I just wanted to state that just as a test, I voted a moment ago, even though, of course, as parliamentarian, I should not be voting, and I would not vote, but the system did let me vote.
We essentially did no credentialing for this. The next batch will be much more sufficient. It will be harder for people to get in without actual credentials. This is just a smoke test of what it is.
And we can continue we can discuss things for a while. What I wanted to know, is there anybody that needs to be recognized before we kind of whack the recording, because we're at
Ms.
9.
Bilyeu.
Ms. Bilyeu.
Yes, I have something that I think is important to say.
Okay.
I have a delegate who is expressing concern about people who are not the chairman of this meeting being able to decide what motions are in order or not. And also people who are not part of the credentials committee, possibly removing people or changing people's names or whatever. So there is a bit of a concern about people who don't have the actual authority during a real convention to make those decisions that are supposed to be left to the chairman.
We have to get tighter on it. Ms. Molensky and Ms. Harlos, and I saw Mr. Stempfel. Just hands on the panel for people that are having trouble with hands.
Thank you for recognizing me. I wanted to ask if there was an actual schedule for moving towards the next smoke test. Is this going to be within a week? Is this going to be planned out within 2 weeks? Is there some kind of an anticipation of when we can look forward to this as a delegate? It concerns me greatly. Thank you.
So for big smoke tests that involve me, it's my schedule, right? I mean, I'm willing to do this every other day for as long as it takes until we get good at it or good enough-ish. But, you know, for other smoke tests, you know, if a different group wants to do it or somebody else who wants to run for chair wants to try and run a smoke test, you know, and bring the people in, all that can be coordinated with the executive director. And I'm happy to have people use it and report back on how it's working. I think I had Ms. Harlos next.
It was, yes, thank you. And it's somewhat related to the last speaker. Just to ask for everyone's convenience, for ones that you're going to be involved in, which I think most people would want to be present for, if we could please have more notice, it would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
May I say something, Mr. Chair?
Who is that?
Travis Grew.
Mr. Grew, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we did our state convention via Zoom. We had over 90 people in it, and we were able to conduct business very well. And we ended up, it was very successful. I know that this is going to be much larger, but we as a state did it. I was the chair of convention. We didn't want to do it that way. However, because of the circumstances, we made it happen and we made it work. So this platform can work if we just perfect it. So I just wanted to throw that out there. This is a very effective way to do this if we can make it right. So we did it as a state, we made it happen. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Can someone promote Mr. Hagan to a panelist to see if we can promote an attendee and they can share their screen?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Lawhorn left a comment in the chat.
Okay.
That I think might be a suggestion you might find valuable. So I just want to point it out.
I will never find it. So,
hang on, and I will read it to you if that will.
And at somewhere, Susan Hogarth would like to say something about credentialing.
He says there are a ton of potentially fatal flaws with this platform, but he would recommend that you present a thread over on Facebook that's a centralized location for working through all of these issues to the satisfaction of the body.
I think I think Mr. Fishman can put that up on Facebook.
Yes.
You know,
This might be a good place to workshop stuff.
Yeah. Ms. Hogarth for credentials. Oh, wait, actually, Mr. Hagan, can you unmute yourself and try and share your screen? Are you able to do that?
There it goes. It's running.
Nicely done.
Okay, just want to make sure it worked.
All right, thank you for that. Ms. Hogarth, go ahead.
I just wanted to say there were some concerns about, so the Credentials Committee is working and will be working over the next couple of days to sort out how this can be done. Of course, it can be done. The one concern I just heard about having helpers label people and change names and things, I don't see that as an essential issue because, you know, you may have a volunteer at the desk handing out name tags. And that's what I see that as. If they're in communication with the Credentials Committee and they know someone has been credentialed, changing their name to say that, it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. I'm gonna start taking some of the attendees because I haven't been there for a minute. Ms. Janice from California, or sorry, Star Child first, then Ms. Janice.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
I agree with the secretary that our bylaws do not actually allow us to hold an online convention, and I think we should try to hold an in-person convention as close to the original date and location as possible, and make provision at that convention for anyone unable or unwilling to be there for health or other reasons to be able to vote by proxy. I think that's the most legal way to do it, and just because a lot of the country is irrationally freaking out about the virus, that's no reason we have to. I think there's very good libertarian arguments that, or very good science-based arguments rather, from a libertarian perspective, that the virus is not what the media and the governments are making it out to be.
Okay, that's not germane to this. Ms. Janice?
Yeah, I have a question. I am on the chat side. I'm only seeing the ability to send to all panelists, but I'm seeing people that I don't know are state chairs. So just who is supposed to be able to communicate with everyone and who isn't at this point?
It's pretty uncontrolled right now.
We had turned that down when we were trying to name everybody to stop the flow of chat so that we could get responses from people's names. Go ahead.
So some people have been upgraded back to being able to talk to everyone and some of us haven't.
All right. Yeah, we're just testing it. Mr. Stempfel?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. There are a bunch of us in here that have already done online conventions. Mr. Groh was just talking about the one in North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin. I wonder if Mr. Fishman would like to run a convention with the state chairs, because we can provide a lot of feedback. A lot of the things you ran into today, a lot of us have already had to deal with. So there's a lot of valuable resource amongst us.
Absolutely.
It's good training for everybody, because a lot of our meetings are on Zoom now, and people can get better at being better presiding officers. Mr. Grew, were you seeking to be recognized again, or did you just not put your hand down?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't put my hand down.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry. Mr. Anderson from Wisconsin. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Thanks. Insofar as the results of this smoke test may affect upcoming LNC votes, can you commit to having one soon, another one soon, that you're chairing, that you're leading?